Welcome students for online classes. So today we'll continue with the chapter 5 under Indian economy, that is human capital formation in India. So in the earlier session we had studied about the economic development based on the human capital. So under today's session we'll study about the educational sector in India, whether there is a progress in education sector in India, to what extent there were policies and programs made by the government to increase the literacy rate in education based upon India. So what happens? What is education? Education plays a major and the important role to our economic development based upon the human capital. So only when there is human capital formation is being formed, only at that particular point of time we will be having some education in our mind, we will be gaining more and more skill. Only at that particular point of time we can think of changing any kind of situation which is happening in the economy. Only when you know about any particular topic you can talk about that. So at the same point of time, what education tells us, only when you have a proper knowledge, when you have proper skill, only at that particular point of time what can you do? You can change the our economy, you can change our India to become a developed one. So education refers to making each and every citizen as a literate. Literate in the sense everybody should know how to write, everybody should know how to read. All these things comprises of education. Not only how to read and write, in spite of that how to acquire knowledge. With the acquisition of all these knowledge, what will you do? You need to implement that particular acquisition of knowledge to any particular thing, maybe in doing any kind of coding thing, maybe in any kind of innovation thing which you can do with the help of studying of all these things. That is known as education. So the various programs for the development of education in India are: first one, National Education Policy. It is also told as NEP. So it was announced. Why was it announced? It was announced, or it was given to the whole economy, so that the higher level of investment in education of at least of 6% of national income. So what does national income mean? When an individual earns money, that is called as salary, but the combination of the whole economy, that is known as national income. So once you acquire knowledge, once you get to know about any kind of knowledge, what will it automatically come into? It will automatically apply for the national income. Once you get to know about the education, once you finish your PU, once you finish your graduation, once you finish your post graduation, which is the next work you do? You will go to job, you will do maybe your father's work, you will continue with your father's work, or you can even continue with whatever you have studied on. So by this, what will you get in return? Maybe any kind of profit, maybe any kind of earnings, so which will affect that the national income or the income for the whole nation will affect. The next thing is about free and compulsory education. So what is happening in the economy? That abolition of child labor. In spite of that, what the children should do? Children should go to the government schools and colleges where the parents cannot afford for the students who can go to private schools. So the government has gave a better option, that free and compulsory education for the age group of 6 to 14 years, so that they get to know what the things are happening in the economy, so that they get a proper certification of their education. Next thing is about Sarva Shikshana Abhiyan. This is for universalization of elementary education. Elementary education in the sense it is a primary education where you study from your kindergarten till the age of till the class of 4 or 5. This is known as the primary education or the elementary education, where the small kids get to know what the alphabets are, how the alphabets are being written, how the alphabets are being pronounced, what is the meaning of mango, or what is the meaning of any particular product or any particular thing in the economy. So this it will be told under Sarva Shikshana Abhiyan. Next thing is about Rashtriya Madhyamika Shiksha Abhiyan. As the word itself tells, Madhyamika, it means the secondary education, that is after 5th to maybe till 10th or maybe till 8th or 9th. Why the secondary education is very much important for the children in the economy? maybe to get a proper standard for their living, or not only for the proper standard of their living, even in spite of that they can even gain more knowledge. These things motivate the students. First, free and compulsory education motivates the parents to put their children to any kind of schools, that is for the government schools. And later on, what happens later on, once the child gets the motivation of the education, once they get to know that reading is a better process, what can they do? They can even get to know new things. They can even start their studying process. This is about the policies and programs given by the government for the education in India. Okay. Next, and the main thing under education, is the role of education in the economic development. To what extent our economy will develop, to what extent there will be growth in our economy, will our India can any at some point of time will our India be the developed one? Yes, of course. Only when there will be a reduction of poverty, only when there will be a reduction of unemployment in our economy, automatically our economy will develop. For all these things, what is very much important? Education is very much important. Education is the important tool of transforming a form of animal existence to human excellence. So normally human is the animal, so there are n number of species, n number of characteristics of a particular human being which is different from the other animals. Why? Because what a human can do that a particular dog cannot do, because a dog cannot study. Not only dog, I am comparing to all the other animals, maybe cow, maybe cat, everything. So what happens at this point of time? To what extent a human's mind, or to what extent human's brain is there, to that extent the other animals cannot compare that. So a animal existence of a human can change to the human excellence only to that extent when a particular individual has education, or only when a particular individual has his smartness to change the economy. So the first thing is gain of knowledge, which is very much important. Where will you gain knowledge? Maybe in any kind of schools and colleges. After gaining knowledge, or after acquiring knowledge, where will you implement all these things? You can implement in the social, political, economical, scientific, moral, and various other aspects of life. You cannot even only go to any companies or any firm to do any particular job. Even in spite of that, you can be a political party, you can be a scientist, you can be a astronaut, anything, whatever you want to become, you can be that particular individual only if you gain proper knowledge which is necessary for that particular topic. Next thing is about skill development, which encourages modern attitudes in the diverse segment of the population. So what happens? Not everybody is equal. For example, even for example, if I compare in your class itself, what happens? One might get 30 out of 30, but the other might get only 14 out of 30. But at this point of time, what is very much important? Whether the person who has gained 30, whether that person is smart enough to lead his life outside the world, or the person who has gained 13, who is smart enough to gain or to have a proper life outside the world, outside the studying, outside being smartness. That is very much important in the economy. Not only being a study bug and get to know whatever there in the economy, even in spite of that, what is very much important, you need to develop your own skill. Not only gaining skill which is there in the book, in spite of that, what is very much important in our economy, to do extra curricular works, not only in the studies, being all around in everything, maybe in dance, maybe in sports, maybe in all the cultural activities also. So this improves the efficiency and even productivity of the individual. Next thing is removal of ignorance. Removal of ignorance or removal of laziness, all these things can be told under education. If a particular individual is very much smart enough or very much interested enough to study a particular topic, he or she can get to know within a span of time, maybe within 10 to 15 minutes. If a particular individual is teaching something and grasping things of the individual who want to grasp things, only these things will happen only when the other person is interested in or doing all these things. So with the help of education, the education will reduce the ignorance, the education will reduce the laziness of a particular person. So not only teaching from the textbook, in even if in spite of that I can start and stand and teach about what is better thing to the life, what happens once you go to job, all these things. Even in spite of that, what is very much important, your interest in that particular topic is very much important in the economy. For example, if I take the class for any kind of lower class student, so in what things will they be very much keen into? Even in spite of that, taking the normal classes, the students or the kids will be very much keen into playing maybe any kind of activities, maybe any kind of dance, all these things. So what happens at that particular point of time, the kid is very much interested. So the word interest is very much important, not only to make the rational decision making. Even in spite of that, the particular individual should be so much keen, or he should be so much interested in that particular point of time to remove any kind of negligence or to remove any kind of negative things under that. Next one is about moral development. Not only developing blindly whatever the teacher tells, even in spite of that, what is very much important, the other aspects of life, maybe disciplinary, maybe to respect your elders, maybe to help your mother or your father, anybody. So by this, what happens, by this a particular individual can know to what extent you live in your life, the standard of life, to what extent you are living. Not only the standard which I tell is not the standard maybe because of the money procedure which you have or which a individual has. In spite of that, what is very much important, the behavior, the character in which a individual lives in. So that is very much important for everybody to have a proper development morally. All these things in a sense, maybe helping any kind of needy ones, maybe not only needy ones, in the sense maybe helping your fellow mates in your class in a better way, not in exam you sit and copy, not that kind of help. But I am telling, maybe if I don't know any kind of math problem, what will I do? I'll go to my friend, I'll ask her or him that please explain me. So this is also a kind of better thing. So all these things, these are all the moral development which you have based upon your values, based upon things which your parent gives to you, and it is very much important for you to take forward this. And this also helps in supplementing the willpower. So how will it supplement the willpower? Say for example, I will come to you just because I don't know what economic development is. So at this point of time, what will you do? You will teach me what that is. So what happens, it will be a revision for you. And even in spite of that, even in spite of there is a teacher, what happens, friends, there is a saying that friends will tell in a better way. So maybe in your own language, maybe in whatever things you tell. So at that point of time, what happens, if I want to tell something, that might be a revision to me, and even for my friend will get to know what I told. So all these things is also a kind of development which you inculcate in yourself, and even you give those things to others. Next thing is about individual evaluation. So what kind of evaluation you do, any kind of resultant things because of the positive thing. Individual development will play a major role, where as told earlier, individual development not only based on education, it is also based on the smartness and the keenness which you have in any particular thing, in doing or in resulting in a better way. Say for example, I will give you a problem. Okay, so at this point of time, what will happen, you might think in another way. If I give you any sort of situation, what happens, you might think in another way. I, as a teacher, I might think in another way, your friend might think in another way. So this is individual perception which will also starts developing your smartness. So later on, what happens, it even teaches us the art of living in the sense, how a particular individual should be, whether whatever I am doing, whether is it good or wrong, whether not only based on education, even based upon the individuality, whether is it good, only in this textbook it has written like this, should I be like this, all these things is different from your individuality. So this is based upon the individual intellectual progress. Next is about the economic development. So what happens once a individual has a proper knowledge, once he or she goes to a proper business, maybe you might do a business, maybe you might go to a company or firm, maybe you become a teacher, maybe you start your father's agricultural field, all these things. So there are n number of opportunities in our economic development. How uh, all this can be done only based upon the education. Even if you want to go to agriculture, what is very much important, I am not telling only the schools and colleges will give you the education. Even in spite of that, your parents, your grandfathers, everybody can give whatever education, whatever knowledge they have in their mind, so that they transform that knowledge from their mindset to your mindset. So that is one of the major things. So how the economic development will happen, once you have a proper skill, proper knowledge about something, you can implement that into something, so that you go to job, you do very well work, so that you get proper paid income. So that will automatically affect the economy. So what happens when the national income of the economy increases, there will be a good productivity. When the productivity comes, what will it come? GDP. What is GDP? Gross domestic product. Where the productivity increases, which will affect the economy, which will increase the development of the economy, which will grow the economy in a better way. All these things will affect the economic development. And the last topic of this chapter is about the future prospects. So based upon whatever we studied under human capital formation, what things can be implemented to the future thing? First one, education for all still a distant dream. Why is it distant dream? Nowadays when I compare 2020 to 1940 or 1950, what happens? Education, the literacy rate of the particular individual is been increasing. Why is it increasing? For example, if my parent are a farmer, and what happens at that point of time, they will be working very hard in the fields. At that point of time, my parents might think that as I am working this hard, my children shouldn't do all these things. So even because of that, what happens, the parents will put their children to any good schools or colleges. So at that point of time, the literacy rate of the economy will also increase. And even what government is providing, the government is providing free and compulsory education to everybody. Free and compulsory education to everybody. What happens at this point of time? Is it reaching to the interior places? Is it reaching to the interior, remote, or the rural areas? There is a biggest question mark. So it is told that education for all is still a distant dream. Okay. Next thing is about gender equity better than before. So what is gender equity? Male and female are equal in front of law, equal in front of everybody. So that is the current era's thing. So what happens when I compare 2020 to 1950? What happened? Female was not going out, she was only doing the household chores, she was only looking after the children, she was only looking after her elder ones, her husband, everything. But now what is going on? Even after a lady or a woman taking care of her children, of her father, of her husband, of her family, even in spite of that, what is she doing? She's having a proper education, she is given a proper job based upon that criteria, whatever she has studied in. So when I tell this particular sentence, it is better than before. When I compare 1950 to 1920, it is far more better. So women are backward from the beginning. So what happened from the beginning? When I compare that, the women were very backward, and only less percentage of the attention was given on women. And nowadays what is happening? Equal opportunities is provided to everybody in the economy. So the needs for promoting women's education in India. First one is about where it increases the standard of living. Say for example, even the mother can teach her child that maybe any kind of ABCD, maybe 1 2 3, maybe the tables, maybe anything. Not only for the smaller kid, even for the PU students, her parents can teach what thing is there in the economy, not only based upon the education, even upon the moral values. Next thing, it creates a strong female generation which is helpful in economic development. A strong female generation, what used to happen in the earlier days, we used to hear that, we used to see even in the movies that the girl child before being birth, before being getting born, what happens, she was getting killed. So that is also nowadays it is decreasing, where the girl children, girl uh, child or the girl kid is very much important to our economy, where equal opportunities is being given in the economy. Women's literacy increases the national literacy ratio. So when we studied in the maybe first chapter, what did we study? The literacy rate of male and female. In the earlier era, the male had 16% literacy rate and female had only 7%. But when I compare to current era, what is happening, the female or the women literacy rate is been increasing when it compares to the male. So that is one of the major thing happening in the economy. Next thing, a woman is a pillar of the economy and family as well. So why is it called a pillar of the economy? So what happens when you go out and once you come after many year or many months, what happens, you come and find your parents. So at this point of time, women is very much important, not only to take care of yourself, even to lead a better life. She will tell what is happening in the economy. She will explain. Not only women, even father tells you what is good for the economy, what is bad. But what happens, women has a higher rate where she will understand what things is happening for a individual. Maybe a individual, a child or a children can share everything with a mother. In the same way, a boys can share everything with his father. So this is the criteria in our economy. Next one, it promotes women's economic independence. So what happens nowadays, as there is equality among everybody, so there is no much dominance by the male to the female. In spite of that, the women are given a freedom, maybe from a father, maybe from a husband. What happens, the parents or the husband are being given a independence or a kind of freedom to their wife or their children, so that they lead a better life in the economy. Next thing, it makes a positive impact on fertility rate and reduces the birth rate. So what happens when you have a proper information about what is going on in the economy, what is going on, rapid population. So when a individual, when a woman knows all these things, women knows the birth control measures, what should be done, what things should be taken into consideration at that particular point of time, what happens, the birth rate can be reduced. Lastly, it makes favorable impact on health of a woman and her children. Maybe during pregnancy, maybe during the maternity, what happens, it is very much important to keep a woman and her children safe. A mother and her children very much safe, give her proper medications, give her proper food. All these things is very much important. And when there is proper guide to be with you, maybe a doctor, maybe the particular woman's husband or their parents with them, at this point of time, it is not only important, even in spite of this, what is very much important, a individual to know what things should be done at what point of time. So this will be also a favorable impact to the women. So this is the thing where the gender thing, where the discrimination between male and women is being decreasing now. And lastly, about higher education, a few takers. So what happens, everybody in the economy are being motivated, everybody in the economy have a proper education. So but what happens, the level of employment which is getting, is it to that extent? Of course not. So the majority of the people are left unseen, they are not getting proper job in the economy. So even the educated youth people are being searching jobs. So even for example, I have completed my post graduation, and even in spite of that, 2 to 3 years I didn't get job anyway. So that is my problem, because of my smartness or because of any kind of negligence which I had made. Based upon that, I'm not getting job anyway. So that is told that government should increase allocating for higher education and also improve the standard of higher education institutions. So what happens, not only the institution should improve whatever they are giving in the schools or colleges, even in spite of that, what is very much important, a proper financial assistance the government should give to the school or college. Even in spite of that, what happens, a particular individual or a student should be smart enough to know all these things which are there in the economy, which is very much important, which is a future prospects which can be applied in future. So this was about the human capital formation. Assignment part: examine the role of education in the economic development of a nation. Second one, discuss the need for promoting women's education in India. So this is the end of the chapter. We have studied the sources of human capital formation, which are those the expenditure made on the various things: education, health, migration, everything. Next thing is the economic development and the indicators, human development, and lastly based upon the education. So the weightage of marks of this chapter is totally it's of 9 marks. So the segregation of marks is based upon 1 mark, 2 mark, 6 mark, which will be equal 1 question. Okay. Okay, students, thank you.